Alright, a stationary vehicle air brake test warning. Before the stationary vehicle air brake test warning. Before beginning stationary vehicle air brake test, ensure the handbrake has been set, the vehicles are blocked, reverser is in neutral position, the GF switch is in off position. Failure to do so may result in injury to the personnel. Note, brake prevention maintenance check services will be performed in accordance with the TM 55220 2210 22 12. Before beginning stationary locomotive air brake test, the brake system must be fully charged. Set the handbrake in the block wheel. Set the automatic intake valves in the handle in the release position. C. Observe the gauges. Gauges shall indicate the following: the main reserve air pressure shall be at 100 to 130 psi. The equal reserve pressure and brake pipe pressure should be at 80 to 90 psi. The brake cylinder pressure should be at 0 psi. 2.6. Use automatic brake valve and make a 10 psi brake pipe reduction. After the brake pipe exhaust ceases to blow, move the cutout pipe valve to the out position and perform the following: make a visual inspection of each spindle in the brake cylinder. Ensure the brakes are applied. Observe the brake pipe, brake cylinder gauge for 1 minute. Break the brake pipe's leakage must not exceed 155 psi in 1 minute. The brake cylinder pressure should indicate between 10 to 25 psi. Observe the equalizing reservoir gauge for 1 minute. No dropping. No drop equalizing reservoir pressure is allowed. Press independent brake valve handling the down 7 seconds. Ensure the brake release. Move automatic brake valve cutoff valves into the in position. Make a 15 psi brake pipe reduction. Ensure the brake supply and brake cylinder pressure indicates the 10 to 25 psi. Move the automatic brake valve handle the halfway. Turn the release position. Observe equalizing pointer in the main reserve equalizing gauge. Ensure there is no rise in pressure. Any rise in the pressure shall require repair of automatic brake valve, distributing valve, and the associating piping up to the angle cock. Moving the installation switch to the run position. Alright, 8. Move the thrower to the number 3 position. Move the automatic brake valve into the emergency position. Observe the following: the brake pipe reduces rapidly. 0. Equalize reserve pressure to the 0 to 3 to 5 seconds. Brake under pressure builds up the rapid rate into no more than 68 to 72 psi. PC switch contacts disengaged, but the PC light on. Engine RPMs reduced to the idle. Standards are actuated. At 9, press the independent brake valve handle and ensure the brake release. 10. Release the independent brake valve handle. Ensure the brake applies. Move the automatic brake valve handle to the emergency position. Wait 2 minutes. Move the throttle into the idle position. Move the automatic brake valve into the release position to charge the brake system. Ensure the pressure is restored to normal. So the isolation idle. Ensure that the PCS switch is on and the PCS light is extinguished. Open and close the fireman emergency brake valve. Ensure the proper operation. Move the independent brake valve handle to the full application position. Ensure the brake applies the brake cylinder pressure shall be 45 psi. Move the independent brake valve in the release position. Ensure the brake release with the independent brake valve release position, making a 15 psi brake pipe reduction with the automatic brake valve. Ensuring the brake applies with the brake cylinder pressure shall be 20 to 25 psi. Move the automatic brake valve handle to the release position. Visualize. Ensure the brake valve and brake cylinder pressure shall be 0 psi. Alright, now we're going to move on to an operating preventing maintenance check service. Note, this is with the designated intervals. These checks are to be performed in order and listed. Okay, so these are listed are B stands for before, D stands for during, and 1 stands for after. These are operator crew maintenance checks for the locomotive. 1. The exterior of the locomotive. Make the following checks: walk around, visually inspect the following items for the proper operation: cracks, damage, broken welds, damage such as the cab truck, couplers, coupling mechanisms, and equipment is not to be available if any of the component damage that would be impair the locomotive operation. B. Visually inspection foundation, brake loose and dragging parts. Parts are loose or dragging. C. The visual inspection of the wheels, defects, worn, missing brake shoes. Ensure the brake shoes are in proper alignment with brake cylinder piston travel between 3 to 6 inches, 76 to 152 millimeters. Wheel is damaged. The brake shoe is worn or missing. If the equipment is not available, equipment is not ready. If when available, if wheel is damaged, the brake shoe is worn and missing. Alright, the item is to be inspect the exterior of the locomotive, checking the side bearing clearance of both trucks. The equipment is not ready if the clearance is apparent. The exterior of the locomotive, check for the procedures of the following have been repaired. The inspection of the locomotive, evidence of the fluid leakage from the fuel, oil, or coolant. The equipment is not ready available if the evidence of a Class 3 leak. 2. The sand traps item to be inspected shall check the sand traps containing the sand sufficient and sand is required. Check the sanders for proper operation. The equipment is not ready if the sanders are not operating. 3. The fuel supply. Check the fuel supply in the 8. Sight glass on the fuel tank. Fill the tank with proper grade of fuel. Check for fuel leaks. Equipment is not ready if there are fuel leaks. 4. The radiator. Check the coolant and the coolant level light of the level side of the glass. Ensure that the proper coolant is proper level to check for the coolant leaks and evidence of the Class 3 leak. 5. The windshield wipers to be inspected. Check the windshield wiper wear for the damage. Check the proper operation. Windshield wipers do not. Equipment is not ready and available if the windshield wipers do not operate. 6. The item to be inspected is the handbrake. Check the handbrake for proper operation. Equipment is not available if the handbrake does not operate properly. Also, check item to be inspected is the cab windows and seats. Clean the windows from the soft cloth. B. To check the glass for cracks. C. Inspect the seat of the mounting obvious damage. Equipment is not available if ready. Windshield of the broken, cracked seat mount, unsecure the damage. 8. The item to be inspected is the engine oil level. Check the oil level. 9. Item to be inspected, air compressor oil level dipstick. Check the oil level. 10. The fire extinguisher. Check the procedures for checking have been repaired or adjusted or needed. Check for the unbroken seals gauge for the proper indication. Equipment is not ready and available if the seal of the check the seal of the gauge indication is improper. Item to be inspected, the main generators for the procedure checking have been repaired and adjusted and needed for the check for broken or frayed belts. If the belts are frayed, then the equipment is not ready or available. 12. The air cleaner indicator, the item to be inspected. Check to see if the green scale is visible, if equipment is not ready, if the red scale is visible. Instrument of gauges. Start the engine and observing the instrument gauge of the indicator, ensuring the indications are during the operation equal numbers indicated below. Engine oil pressure is gauged from 50 to 70 psi. These are equipment is not ready if one or more of the instruments is inoperative, giving faulty indications. The engine oil pressure is 50 to 70 psi. Engine coolant temperature is 100 to 198 degrees Fahrenheit. Fuel pressure gauge is 50 to 70 psi. Air compressor oil gauge pressure gauge is 30 to 40 psi. The pressure indication is less than 30 psi. The equipment is not ready. The engine oil filter differential pressure gauge is less than 15 psi. The equipment is not ready and available if the pressure indicates more than 15 psi. Main reservoir pressure is 120 to 130 psi. Brake pipe equalizing reverse pressure within the brake release is above 80 psi. Brake cylinder pressure and brake release brake applied from 0 to 45 psi. The load meter is at 0 amps and the load meter operating is 0 to 600 amps. 13. Continued. Brake charging in the green area indicator. Hot engine oil indicator light is off. Low oil engine pressure indicator light is off. Fuel pump indicator light is off. Slip indicator light is off. PC indicator light is off. Ground indicator light is off. And 14. The item to be in subsequential inspection is signal devices. Checking the following for proper operation. The bell and horn. If equipment is not ready available. If the warning device is not inoperative. Are inoperative. 15. The brake system item to be inspected in sequential order. Check the brake system proper operation. Ensure the brake cylinder piston travel is between 3 to 6 inches. And B. To check the airline hoses for cracked brakes, deterioration. Check for gland hands, gaskets for the damage. Equipment is not ready available. The brake valves operate improperly. 16. The air reservoir drain moisture. The main reserve. Turn the drain valve with the knocking clubs clockwise. 17. Proper operation of locomotive procedures. Checking have been repaired and adjusted as needed. Check for unusual noises. Upon the detection of the unusual noise, locomotion is stopped and visual inspection reveals defective components. 18. Night lights. Check the following lights for the proper operation. Locomotive is to be used in daylight, gauge lights, compartment lights, number lights, step lights, and headlights. Equipment is not to be ready and available if the lights are inoperative. Alright, moving on to the daily locomotive inspection sequential order. from the FRA listing, top of the cab inspection, ground at the bottom inspection. Compliance, a number, no. Locomotive is, if no, with it is it no or yes, locomotive is required to move them pursuant to statute 222, 2299 or 22.9, is the locomotive continuing service? Yes or no? To eliminate questions over the meaning of the term used to describe the inspection of the task of the compromised locomotive candidate day inspection for the FRA provides the following guidelines. 229F, A breaks the fracture resulting in completing with the separation in parts. 222.9F, the crack means the fracture given the indication weakening of the structure exhibits the gap of the significant length in the area of the potential high stress without the completing of the separation of the parts. Surface flaws or order minor shrinkage cracks usually due to the weakening of the integrity of the component. 229.5, the zero dead locomotive is the one locomotive other than the control cab locomotive that does not have any traction device supplying the traction power to the control cab that has been locked on an unoccupied cab. Notes the locomotive does not cease in locomotive because of its propelling motor. The motor's inoperative becomes its control jumper cables is connected. A dead locomotive may continue in the following calendar inspection controlling locomotive at the head train of the locomotive consists. 229.7, the prohibited acts. The Locomotive Inspection Act makes it unlawful to any carrier to use the permit to use be on its line any of the locomotive unless in the entire locomotive the prudency in proper condition safety operate. 229.2.1 daily inspection. Each locomotive is used and inspected at least once each calendar day. Note that uncoupling the locomotive does not require is not required when the calendar daily inspection is performed. 2. Any condition that constitutes compliance with the railroad locomotive standards shall be repaired, and if used, then may be moved only in a light locomotive, dead locomotive, and from the carrying comply with the fair requirements movement of the non-compliant locomotives. Performance inspection prescribed with the charters does not relieve the railroad liability of 229.7 for the failure to comply with any of the provisions of Part 229. 229.2, the one daily inspection report must be prepared for each of the daily locomotive inspection performed. The report shall contain the name of the carrier, initial of the number of the locomotive, place and date, and the time of the inspection, description of non-complying conditions, and signature on the inspector. 229.21, qualified person designated with the career performed the locomotive daily inspection required with the guidance must be provided with the classroom interactive training. Note, the qualified person must possess the necessary equipment to accomplish with the inspection testing in accordance with these guidelines. Alright, moving on to the daily inspection. This is either yes or no. The top of the cab inspection, yes or no. That is 229.223. The period inspection examined the F618 0.49A, the blue card, to ensure that all inspection tests prescribed with the 229 are current. Yes or no. Cabs and floor passengers, the cab floors and passenger ways are free of the impediments that may cause tripping or slipping of the hazard of the cab seat. It must be properly secured to prevent personnel injury. Yes or no. Audible warning operating the horn leading the locomotive to determine the function when equipped with the operating of the bell. Yes or no. Cab lights, cab overhead instrument lights shall be operated, providing with sufficient illumination pathways used of the crew and shall be illuminated. Yes or no. Speed indicator inspects the speed indicator with the controlling of the locomotive to determine that it is not damaged. The test should be made to determine the accuracy after the departure. Yes or no. Brake system locomotive brakes shall be known if the operating intended with the testing procedure should include the testing automatic brake and independent brake valves drain water oil from the reservoir. Yes or no. Control locomotive. Whenever there are two or more locomotives are coupled into the remote multiple control, all systems shall respond to the control from the cab of the controlling locomotive, i.e. the propulsion, sanders, and air brakes, etc. Yes or no. Event records. Examine the event recorder if it is accessible to the crew members for evidence of tampering. Yes or no. Protection, personal injury exposed to the move of the mechanical parts of the relay, switching high voltage equipment inside the cab of the engine room compartment shall not be present undue to the safety hazard of the crew members. Yes or no. Exhaust, batteries, and gases. Inspect the sign of the diesel exhaust, battery gases, or other noxious fumes that are vented outside of the and not into the cab of the locomotive. Yes or no. Engines. The temperature, pressure alarm shall be observed to determine the engine of the function properly in the shutdown of the engine shall be in a warning device. Yes or no. The general condition, inspect the determination that is not defective, no defects that it would endanger the safety of the crew and ensure insecure or such as insecure improper functions, compliance, safety appliances, structural defects, etc. All right, daily locomotive inspection continued. The ground bottom inspection, yes or no. The pilots with snowplows in place at the end of the direction of the traveling each end of the lead. Locomotive must have a pilot plate on the snow plow properly secured, but not less than 3 inches more than 6 inches of the rail. Draft system couplers uncoupling device levers must be functionally proper to visually inspect the exposed components of the draft system from the defects, yes or no. Jumper cables may not be broken in shaft or left hanging on one end of the free. A jumper receptacle may have the broken terminals of the retainer caps. Sanders must be operating on each of the locomotive in the front of the first power wheel in the direction of travel and must be in line with the deposit on the sand of the rail. Yes or no. Headlight, auxiliary lights, headlight, and dimmer switches must be operated in the lead end of the locomotive, both ends of the locomotive, the switching, etc. Auxiliary light might not be used in lieu of the headlight. Yes or no. Piston travel may not exceed 1/2 an inch less than the maximum total travel. The total possible travel can be acquired by the blue card F6180-49A. Release brakes should provide brake shoe clearance. The yes or no. All right, the foundation, brake gear, inspection of the brake gear, ensure that all parts of the secured brake shoes must be in line correctly with the wheel and be overlap with the groove. The yes or no. Wheel inspection series wheels following the conditions: flat spots, high flange, shell spots, flat rims, thin rims, gouge chips and arranged flanges, crack bears and flange rims, plate and hub. Yes or no. Trucks might not be cracked or broken. Conducted walk around inspection of the exposed truck components for the cracked and broken hazardous conditions. Inspect the other outside of the gauge of the rail defective components. No part of the except the wheels. No metallic sand hoses may be less than 2.5 inches of the rail. Spring riggings, truck springs and riggings must not be broken in proper position. Spring safety hangers be in correct position. Shock absorbers may not be broken leaking clearly from the drop oil of the fluid. Motor and generators. No traction motor may be cut out, and all traction motor cable connections should be damage free or free of accumulation of oil that may be hazardous. Plane bearing. Inspect the plane bearing boxes for the crack and the damage that might cause the loss of contamination of lubrication. All right, your minimum set observation test and compromising the locomotive calendar day inspection. Description: minimum steps of the locomotive calendar day inspection. This section may be section on walkthrough with the locomotive safety standards of the Title 49 CFR Part 229. The calendar day inspection and the visual walk-around inspection is crucial and component with the railroad safety program. It provides the best and most frequent opportunity to find the correct recipient problems of the locomotive before the problems lead to any accident, safety incidents, and effective locomotive calendar inspection shall be based on the common sense judgment as well as the guidance given with the locomotive safety standards. The inspector should be alert with the telltale signs of any of the conditions defective with the potential that is a potential hazard. Railroads should be using the guidelines foundation of the calendar and a inspection tailored with the specific safety needed, dictated with the railroad type of equipment and method of operation. The definitions to eliminate the question of the overall meaning of the term that describe the inspection test of the compromised locomotive calendar day inspection. The FRA provides the following guidelines: 229.5A is the break means fracture resulting in complete separation into parts. 225.5E is a crack means a fracture that indication of weakening of the structure and exhibits a gap or significance in the area potential high stress without the completion of the separation of the parts such as flaws or old minor shrinkage cracks, usually done with weakening the integrity of the component. 229F dead locomotive means a locomotive other than the cab locomotive that does not have any traction device to supply tractive motor power or controlled cab locomotive has locked or unoccupied to the cab. Notes that the locomotive does not cease to be a locomotive because of the propelling motors. The motors are inoperative because of the control of the jumper cables are connected with the dead locomotive may continue using the following calendar day inspection controlling locomotive of the head train of the locomotive consists 229 simply prohibited with the acts of the locomotive inspection is make unlawful to carry any carrier the use of the permit with the use in line of any of the locomotives to use the entire locomotive the prudency proper the condition is safe to operate. 229.21 of the daily inspection. Each locomotive must be inspected at least once each calendar day. Note: the uncoupling of the locomotive is not required when the calendar day inspection is performed. Any condition constitutes compliance with railroad safety Locomotive safety standards of 229, Statute 229 shall be replied as more than moved only as a little locomotive, dead locomotive, and after the comply with the federal requirements of the non-complying locomotive. Performance of the inspection shall be in the charter, but do not relieve the railroad's liability of the failure to comply with the provision of the statute part 229. 229.21, the daily inspection must be reported to each of the daily inspection performed. The report shall contain the name of the carrier, installation number of the locomotive, place and date and time of the inspection, description, non-complying condition, signature, inspection. 229.21c, a qualified personnel designated with the career of the performed locomotive daily inspection. Inspection is required with these guidelines to provide with the classroom interactive training. Note the qualified person must not be the necessary equipment of the municipality accomplishing inspection testing in accordance with these guidelines. 229.21 calendar day inspection. The section of locomotive standards that requires the locomotive to be inspected each calendar day and written with the report prepared with the railroad and safety inspection and has been completed with the addition of the first level list below. The written report indicated with the non-compliant with the conditions of the by the inspection. The written report shall contain the name of the railroad, the initials of the number of the locomotive, the location when it was done, the date and time of the inspection, the description of any of the non-compliant conditions found, as signature of the inspector. In addition, with the record maintained with each of the locomotives should place the date at the time of the previous inspection. All FRA non-compliant conditions required by the inspector may be reported before the locomotive is used. Any condition for the inspector could maybe not be converted with the federal regulations. The judgment inspector poses in potential safety hazard shall be reported to the railroad. 229.7, the Locomotive Inspection Act requires that the entire locomotive prudency to be inspected properly, conditions safe operating to serve which are the part of the unnecessarily peril life to limb, peril to life and limb. Section 229.9.4, movement of the non-complying locomotives. Locomotives with one or more non-compliant defective conditions may be moved only after a qualified personnel has been determined that it is safe to move the locomotive. The locomotive is properly tagged and crew members are notified in writing. Section 229.13, control locomotives. When two or more locomotives are couple the remote of the multiple control with the propulsion system, the sander, and the power of the brake system of each of the locomotives shall respond with the controlling locomotives. Section 229.23, the periodic inspection general of the locomotive inspection repair part of the F618049A blue card must represent the locomotive to be examined for the determinant of the periodic, annual, biannual inspection are not overdue indicated by dates. Section 229, Section 229.41, protection against personal injury. Exposed moving parts, high voltage equipment must be inspected to determine the undue safety hazard of the crew members operating the locomotives exists. Section 229.43, the exhaust of the battery gas. Inspect the signs of the diesel exhaust battery gas and noxious fumes in compartments that are ventilated to the outside or the operating of the cabin may result in an undue safety hazard of the crew members. Section 229.45, any condition would endanger the safety of the crew, locomotive of the train will be considered non-complying under this section. Inspection of the safety compliance, handrail safety, stairways, handholders, ladders, walkways, and etc. should be inspected to determine whether or not loose, obstructed, are safe in the condition intended to use. Inspect the general condition requires the inspector to propose the sufficient knowledge of the equipment and enable him or her to identify any potential unsafe conditions not specifically covered by the federal safety standards. These conditions may include attachment of the components, improper functional of the components, crack brakes, excessive wear of other structural infirmities of the components, hazardous accumulation of the oil on electrical equipment, fuel, oil, water leaks, excessive accumulation of the constitute the personal injury hazards shall be considered a non-compliant condition. The following sections have been grouped together and addressed in the requirements to be outlined in these sections should be inspected as a result of the brake testing practices procedures. Section 229.46, brake general. 229.47, emergency brake valve road locomotives. 229.49, main reserve system. 229.53, brake gauges. 229.59, locomotive brakes should be tested to determine that they are operated and intended related to air pressure as are correct tested. The procedure shall be established from road, shall be included with the automatic independent brake valve. Leakage tests are to be made ensuring that the brake valve system integrity that leakage does not exceed not established limits of the water and oil should be drained with the main air reserve system. The emergency brake valve should be checked for accessibility and a physical condition of section 229.55 piston travel. The brake cylinder piston travel shall be inspected when applied with a session not exceed 1 1/2 inch of the total possible position of the travel. The maximum position travel is found on the F618049A blue card located in the locomotive. For example, the maximum brake cylinder piston travel of 8 inches may not exceed 6 1/2 inches. An inspector shall not determine the actual piston travel of the independent brake valve or say independent brake cylinder may not be less than 30 pounds per square inch after the full application of the independent brake valve. Section 229.57 foundation brake gear. Inspect the brake rigging to ensure that all parts, including the brake shoes, are properly secured. Brake shoes shall be aligned and correct with the wheel tread and not exceeding the vertical over the edge of the rim. 229.61 drafting system. The coupler's uncoupling mechanism shall be inspected to determine that they are not cracked, bent, or broken or function as they're intended. And function as intended. Coupler and the carrier yokes must also be inspected to determine that they are not cracked or broken. Draft gears may not be broken. Visual inspection of the exposed components of the draft system to be inspected. Apparatus defective. Section 229.64 plain bearing boxes shall be contain visible free oil may not be cracked or to the extent that will leak oil. Section 229.65 spring rigging. Truck springs rigging shall be inspected to determine that all parts of the free of brakes in proper position. Spring safety hanger shall be in the correct position and not following the spring mechanism. Shock absorbers may not be broken and clearly formed droplets of oil. The following section, part 229, have been combined together to address the essential components of the truck assembly. Section 229.67, the trucks, 229.69, side bearings, 229.71, clearance of the above top of the rail. The visual inspection is supposed that the component of the truck assembly shall be performed to inspect the apparent defects and to determine if the components are not cracked or broken. The walk-around visual inspection of the truck assembly shall be performed to determine that the truck components are not cracked, broken, or the hazardous condition. With the exception of the wheels and non-metallic sand hoses, the non-component may have less than 2 1/2 inches of the clearance above the top of the rail. The section 229.75, wheel defects. Visual inspection of the wheels of the following conditions: flat spots, shelled out spots, gouges, chips in the flanges, high flange, thin rim, or cracks or breaks in the flange of the rim or the plate or the hub. Section 229.89, jumper cable connections. The jumper cable receptacle should be in proper condition, no bigger than the conductor. The wire shall be exposed to determine that the jumper cables are properly stored, and the end of the cable shall not be hanging free. Do not follow the couplers. Do not create a tripping hazard. 229.91 motors and generators. No traction motors to be cut out, and all traction motor cables. The cable connections should be free of damage. Traction motor of the cable shall be free of accumulations of oil that may present a hazard. Section 229.101 temperature alarm, pressure alarm, shutter, and the controls of the internal engine shall be observed to determine that the engine is operating properly. 229.117 229.117. The speed indicators controlling locomotive that operate with the speed range greater than 122 miles per hour must be equipped with the operator speed indicator that is clearly readable with the engine's normal position. Section 229.119. Cab floors and passageways. Inspection of the passageways, the engine compartment floors, the accumulation of oil, water, debris that prevents hazards for the crew. The following are for some of not only the examples of hazardous conditions: oil or slippery walkway surfaces, of obstacles impeding the passageway of the existing obstacle to present the tripping hazard. Inspect the cab seats windows to determine that the seats are properly secured with the windows and leading the locomotive provided with clear vision. Metal containers shall be provided with the fuses of torpedoes, and single container may be used if in partially separated torpedoes from the fuses. There shall be continuous barrier the full width of the end of the locomotive, the continuous barrier such as safety chains in between the locomotives. 229.123 pilots and snowplows end plates inspect each of the locomotive to determine that it has a pilot snowplow end plate of the direction of the movement extended across both of the rails properly secured in not less than 3 inches more than 6 inches above the top of the rail. Inspecting the pilot snowplows and end plates of the non-leading training of the locomotives to determine that they are properly secured. Section 229.125 headlights. 229.133 auxiliary externalized ditch lights, crossing lights, etc. Each lead locomotive may be used in the road surface must have a headlight facing in the direction of the travel and must be ascertained that the headlight operates properly and can be dimmed. Auxiliary external lights may not be substituted for the locomotive headlight. Section 229.127 Cab lights inspect the cab of the gauges to determine that they operate and they provide with sufficient illumination for the controls, instrument, meters, and gauges to enable the crew to make accurate reading of the train in order of the normal position in the cab. The cab passageways and compartments used and by the crews and shall have sufficient illumination for safe use. Section 229, 128, audible warning device, lead locomotive operating horn of the lead locomotive association that is functioned when equipped with the test of locomotive bell. Section 229.13.1, standards. The test of standards determine each of the locomotive has sand being delivered to each of the rail in the front of the first powder of the wheel set in the direction of the movement. Section 229.135, event records. The event record is accessed. The crew members inspect for evidence of tampering. Alright, that was, we gave you the lube order. We gave you the technical manual breakdown, sequential preventive maintenance check services, and now I just read you the CFR 49 Part 229 and codes. So we're gonna move on to item 2. Checking and replenish watering supply, fuel and battery, water, sand, and wheel flange lubrication. But I'm going to stop and take a break, and this next part is going to be pretty much some reading and part drawings. Yeah, I'm going to go over those quickly.